Good evening, everybody. How are you guys all doing? I'm so sorry that I haven't been posting in a few days. I've been kind of sick. Yeah. And I just didn't want to have to sit here and read. Plus, my voice sounded kind of bad, so I didn't want you guys to suffer through that. But, anyway. Also, I want to say that the, picture on the video, thumbnail, is actually art made by me. And I hope that kind of inspires you guys to make fan art of yourselves and all that, because, like, this is a really good book to make fan art of. Also, or any art that you guys make, because I would love to put it in my videos, because I just love art, and I love you guys. Yeah, anyway. So, let's get into the book. We are on chapter 5. So far, we have an insight on Henry's life and how he kind of sees the world, basically. So, let's see and get into how and why he sees the world like this even more. September 10th, 2015. One of the 4 fundamental forces, gravity is considered the weakest, despite its theoretical endless range. Gravitational forces attract physical bodies to one another. The greater their masses, the greater their attraction. We are pulled toward the ground by gravity. Gravity keeps the moon in orbit around the Earth, and our planet is held captive by the sun because of gravity. But gravity is unlimited to celestial bodies. It applies to people too, though rather than being determined by mass, its force is determined by popularity. Popularity is teenage heroin. Kids who have tasted it crave more. Those who have an abundance of it are revered as gods, and even those who have never basked in the light of its glory secretly desire it, regardless of what they may say to the contrary. Popularity can transform an otherwise normal kid into a narcissistic, ego-obsessed, materialistic asshole. Not that I would know. I have never been nor wanted to be popular. Popularity is the reason Marcus ridicules me in public and makes out with me when we're alone. He texted me a couple times, still trying to convince me to spend the weekend at his house, but I didn't respond. He was pretending not to watch me from his locker as I dodged other students who were too busy staring at their phones to notice they were in my way. I wondered how Marcus would have reacted if I marched up to him and kissed him for the whole school to see. Not that I would ever. Chemistry is my oasis, and I'm usually the first person to arrive, but today Audrey Dorn beat me. It was at her desk, alternating between staring at her phone and watching the door. I waved at Miss Farcy when I entered, but she was busy drawing chemical structures on the board and didn't notice. "You've got to watch this." Audrey faced her phone to me when I reached my desk. It was one of those Japanese prank shows. They put a guy in a coffin with a bunch of dead squid and left him there. I slid into my seat. Claustrophobia is hilarious. Maybe another time. 2 girls walked in and Audrey shrank reflectively, but they didn't even look at us. "Listen, Henry." She leaned across the aisle and spoke in a whisper. "I saw you coming out of the restroom yesterday. Was my fly down? Did I forget to wear underwear again? I hate when I do that." "I know what you were doing in there." Audrey's eyes darted all over the room. "And I know who you were doing it with." More students trickled in as a 2-minute bell rang. "Nice try, Veronica Mars, but I have no idea what you're talking about." "You bite your lip when you're lying, Henry. Your moves when you're being a nosy fuck muppet." "Did you just call me a fuck muppet?" "If the hand fits." Audrey stiffened. "Whatever. I was only trying to help. Your concern for me is touching. Too bad it's not sincere." The stragglers rushed in and the final bell rang, filling the empty seats. Miss Farcy drove in to a review of our upcoming exam, but I couldn't concentrate on anything except Marcus. Unless Audrey had a secret spy cam on the boys' toilets, all she could know is that we were both in the restroom at the same time. Anyway, she was the only person at CHS snoopy enough to monitor when and where I took a whiz. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I jumped in my seat, which distracted Miss Farcy, causing her to lose her train of thought and launch into a tangent about the importance of understanding atomic structure. As soon as she turned her back, I checked my phone. It was from Marcus, though he came up with the all-star plumbers. His idea. All-star plumbers, bleachers, lunch, I'll bring the footlong. It was risky meeting him while Audrey was playing detective, but I wanted to see him, especially since I turned down his offer for the weekend. Even when I hate Marcus, I miss him when we aren't together. He doesn't fill that yawning hole left by Jesse, but Sometimes he makes it hurt a little less. I texted a quick reply and then stowed my phone. Francie was reviewing the different types of chemical reactions when the door in the front of the class swung open to admit a guy I didn't recognize. He was tall and dangerous, with spiky black hair and a fuck you grin. Lean muscles danced under his crisp shirt. He stood in the doorway, his thumbs hooked to the belt loops of his gray shorts until the entire class was staring at him. Someone call for a new model? Miss Farcy sputtered as she tried to reply. Those students not gapping at the strange kid whispered to one another about him. Marcus wore a wolfish smirk, which caused something savage to rumble in my chest. I'm sorry, Miss Farcy said. Who are you? Diego, obviously. He spoke with one ease that was possibly rehearsed. No one could be so composed under the withering sanctuary of 20 set of eyes. I'm not really a new model, yet. I wonder if Miss Farcy was having trouble speaking because the interruption had thrown her off her game and she was trying to figure out where in her lecture she had left off, or because she was imagining what Diego would have looked like naked too. Finally, she rushed out behind her desk and ushered Diego into the hall. I strained to listen, but couldn't hear anything over the din of excited conversations. After a few moments, Miss Farcy leaned into the room and said, Henry, can you come out here? Bring your things. I gathered my books, wishing not for the first time that I could turn invisible. Miss Farcy patted my arm when I reached the door. Henry's one of my best students. He'll show you to your class. I will. Diego's new. Miss Farcy handed me a crumpled printout. He got a little turned around. Behind us, the class was descending into a chaos without supervision. I'll do him. I'll take Diego to his class. At that moment, I wish I was a discless alien, but my verbal diarrhea only made Diego smile. It was a cute smile, lopsided and charming. Miss Farcy mouthed, thank you, and rushed inside as Dustin Caller fell off his desk and crouched into the supply closet where Miss Farcy stored the violent chemicals. I slung my backpack over my shoulder and led Diego towards the exit. You're supposed to be in history with Miss Parker this period. It's across the campus in the social studies wing. Diego took his schedule, folded it neatly, and slipped into his backpack pocket. Lead the way, Sakawaya. What? Because you're my guide. And we're going to history? Forget it. Diego's voice was deep and hummed like the concentrated vibration of the slugger ship. The humid air plummeted as soon as we left the air-conditioned science building, but I was still grateful for an excuse to escape the classroom. I took the long way to the social studies building. So, Diego said, your science teacher's a little out there. Yeah, but she seems cool. The confidence Diego excluded when he burst into my class appeared to be warning, and he fidgeted, shoving his hands into his pockets, then crossing his arms, then putting his hands back into his pockets. I was never good at small talk, preferring not to talk at all. Talking is how bad things happen, but Diego seemed uncomfortable with the silence, so I gave it a try. Science is my favorite. It's precise, and everything has an explanation. Plus, sometimes we get to blow shit up. I can seal the appeal. It's so weird. Once I get babbling, I couldn't stop. Like, the smaller things get, the crazier science becomes. When you start talking about pre-brains and quantum immortality and entanglement, well, it's just cool, it's all. Diego stared at me with x-ray eyes. It was like he was seeing through me, my clothes, my skin, and straight to the meat of me. I quickly changed the subject. You just moved here or something? Or something. Diego quickened his pace. The way he avoided looking at me reminded me of Jesse at the end. The odd hesitation before each smile, the sudden silences that rose between us. At the time, I hadn't thought much of them, but that's what makes hindsight such a bitch. I didn't mean to pry. It's not you, Diego said. It's just a reflex. I moved from Colorado. The first thing that popped to mind was Jack Saget was from Colorado. Who? Jack Saget? Apollo 13 astronaut? Nearly died in space trying to reach the moon? I stuffed my hands into my back pockets when Diego shook his head. I read a lot. Books are for ugly people. And old women. My Nana reads a book a day. Of course, she's got Alzheimer's, so she could read the same book over and over, and it wouldn't make a difference to her. She used to write in her journal every day. I kind of picked up the habit from her. So you're a writer? I write sometimes. Mostly about stuff that happens to me, and occasionally different ways the world might end. But I'm not a writer. Diego laughed, and the rich, sincere sound of it made me smile. That sounds odd. I paint. Landscapes. Lots of scapes. I can't even draw stick figures. I sat next to a kid in middle school who specialized in turning the illustrations in his textbooks into dicks and vaginas. I doubt there's any real-world application. I couldn't stop rambling, so I bit the inside of my lip to shut myself up. We reached the social studies building. It was squat, 2-story structure that was begging to be torn down. The paint was peeling and the classroom smelled moldy and damp. Here we are, 219s on the second floor. Thanks for being my guide. Sure. Oh, and you should avoid sitting in the front row. Miss Parker's a spitter. Diego tapped his temple. Noted. See you later, Henry. Denton. Diego Vega. He climbed the stairs and I walked into the direction of the football field. Hey, Henry. I stopped and turned around. Diego's leaning over the railing of the second room floor, and I had to crane my neck to see him. You think you'll ever go into space? I'd say it's pretty likely. 20 minutes later, Marcus was pawing me under the bleachers while I kept a lookout for spiders and tried not to feel like a dirty cliche. He didn't even say hello when he saw me because he was too busy slipping his tongue into my mouth and putting his hands down my pants. It would have been sweet if I thought he was actually happy to see me rather than just plain horny. My stomach churned and I pushed Marcus away to avoid burping in his mouth. Sorry, I skipped breakfast. Marcus grabbed his crotch. I got something I changed my mind about this weekend, I said, cutting him off before he ruined the moment. Really? Yeah, my mom's preoccupied with work and Charlie can look at the nana. Marcus uncapped his bottle of water and took a swing. Too late, space boy. Why? My voice was crumbling, and I struggled to shore up its supports. After you blew me off, I decided to throw a little party. Oh. Marcus twitched my nipple. I slapped his hand away. Dick? It's not even a party, really. More like an intimate gathering of friends. Next time. I pinched my leg through my jeans and focused on the pain. I had no right to be upset. I bailed on him first. It's not like I expected him to sit at home all weekend, pining for me. But would it have killed him to act a little disappointed? Definitely. Marcus checked his time on his phone. Come on, space boy. Bell's gonna ring soon. And I didn't invite you out here to talk. Okay, so that's chapter 5. And before we get into chapter 6, let's just talk a little bit about it. So again, we get some more insight on Marcus's and Henry's relationship. We get a little bit of a sense of relationship between Audrey and Henry and anything in the past. We get a little bit more about Jesse. And now we have a new character, Diego. I'm not gonna lie, besides Henry, Diego's like one of my favorite characters in this book. I don't know, I just always liked him and I thought he was funny. But anyway, let's get into chapter 6, September 11th, 2015. On Friday, Marcus hardly acknowledged me. I loathed admitting I wanted him to pull me into the restroom to make out or send me a text begging me to come to his party. Anything to prove he gives a shit. Sorry, guys. To occupy my mind and keep me from spiraling out of control, I tried to come up with an explanation for why the sluggers chose me to save the planet. I think most people would have pressed the button the moment they realized the stakes. Most people are motivated by their own self-interest, and pushing a button would ensure their survival. But I'm not most people. Maybe that's why the sluggers chose me. They weren't sure what I would do. On the surface, it seems like there's a million reasons to press the button. Great movies, books, sex, pizza, with everything, bacon, kissing, but those things mean nothing. The universe is more than 13 billion years old. What is the value of a single kiss compared to that? What is the value of an entire world? It's too much to wrap my brain around, which only leads me back to wondering why I've been chosen. There were smarter people who could make more of an informed decision, and dumber people who would make a quicker one. The sluggers didn't abduct them, though. They abducted me, and all I could do was be honest. I trucked to the front door when I got home from school, and all I wanted to do was make a sandwich, take a nap, and sleep through the weekend. But Mom and Nana were huddled around the kitchen table, staring at a shoebox stuffed with papers and envelopes. They were water and Mososians. Mom's cheeks were flushed, and she was sucking on a cigarette. Puff, puff, ash. Puff, puff, ash. I considered skipping my snack and retreating to my room, but I couldn't escape on an empty stomach. I regretted my decision immediately. Henry, tell your mother she's not putting me in a nursery home. Mom rolled her eyes, which she knew Nana hated, and blew a cloud of smoke into the air. Mother, you need someone to look after you. I can look after myself. Before I moved in with us, you were eating rancid meat, and I hadn't paid your water bills in 3 months. Nana crossed her arms over her sagging breast. Fucking gravity. I had water because you ran a hose from Mr. Finnegan's house through your kitchen window. I'm not an invalid, Eleanor. She spoke with a quiet fury, her anger reducing to a hard crust you need a hammer to chip away. Mom laughed in her face. When was the last time you showered or brushed your teeth? That's irrelevant. I've got 2 children, Mother. I don't need a third. I'd rather die than live in one of those places. They glared at each other across the table, the air between them a toxic cloud of cigarette smoke and resentment. I was certain they'd forgotten I was there, and the intelligent decision would have been to sneak away, but I was thinking with my rumbling stomach rather than my brain. Nana doesn't belong in a nursing home, Mom. Mind your business, Henry. Nana stood and shuffled to the fridge. Go to your room and wait for your father to get home. She lingered before she opened the door, staring at the shelves of food. Daddy's gone, Mom said, her fight evaporating. He's been dead a long time. That's a terrible thing to say, Nana mumbled. I think he liked pot roast for supper. Nana's forgetfulness was cute at first. She called us by the wrong names, mixed up our birthdays, sent us Christmas cards in the middle of summer. But it isn't cute anymore. Sometimes she looks at me and I see nothing but a deepened abyss where my grandmother used to be. She's become a stranger to me, and I'm often nobody to her. Then she'll turn around 10 minutes later and tell me I'm her favorite grandson. Nana's doctors believe her memory will continue to deteriorate. Good days outnumber the bad now, but eventually only bad days will remain. I'll come home right from school, I said. Don't put her in a home. Nana unloaded butter, tomatoes, and a package of chicken thighs onto the table. Whatever she's cooking, it wasn't pot roast. Mom bumbled with her cigarette and lit another. Whatever, it's not like you can afford it anyway, especially with the way you and your brother eat. She glanced at the shoebox of unpaid bills. Waiting tables is exactly the path to riches. Get a new job then, I said. You studied cooking in France. You should be running a restaurant. Henry, come on, Mom. You know I'm right. I bet there are a ton of restaurants that would hire you if you just try to... Henry, she said. Shut up. Charlie and his girlfriend Zoe Hawthorne burst into the kitchen carrying grocery bags, oblivious to the tension that clung to the walls like splattered grease. I never thought I'd be glad to see Charlie. Who's hungry? He asked, dropping his bags on the table, which pushed Nana's growing collection of odd ingredients aside. Zoe's making pasta carbonara, and I thought Nana could bake an apple pie. Zoe kissed Nana's cheeks and led her away from the fridge. You have to give me a recipe. It's so yum. Zoe's taller than Charlie, slender with light skin like a buckeye, and spacey brown eyes. She's too good for it, my dipshit brother. I was still waiting for Mom to pick up on our argument for where we left off while Charlie and Zoe unpacked the groceries like we were some kind of happy family, like this was normal. I'll skip the food poisoning for night, I said. Charlie got my arm, squeezed hard, and pulled me into an awkward hug. It threw me off balance. Charlie doesn't hug me. We don't hug each other. It isn't our thing. Wedgies, wet willies, dead legs, and broken noses. Those are our things. Family dinner, bro. Mom shook her head. Her shoulders were slumped and her back bowed, giving her the impression of having a hump. Charlie, I don't think tonight. We're pregnant. Zoe and Charlie snapped together, linking hands and shared a goofy grin. She rubbed her still flat belly and said, 10 weeks. I wasn't sure at first, even after I took a dozen home tests, but I went to my gyno and she confirmed it. We're pregnant. I told Mom to have you neutered, I said, and Charlie boxed my ear. Show us some respect, kid. Kid? My brother's a kid. Sure, he could drink, smoke, and kill during war times, but he's still a dumb kid. He pees on the toilet seat and doesn't know how to operate the washing machine. It was only a couple of months ago that he shoved a peanut M&M so far up his nose we had to take him to the emergency room to have it extracted. Charlie has no business having a baby when he's just a baby himself. But Charlie and Zoe stood in the middle of the kitchen smiling and smiling, waiting for someone to congratulate them or tell them they were ruining their lives. The longer they waited, the more strained the smiles became, cracking around the edges. They might have waited forever if Nana had broken the silence. Young man, do your parents know you're having a colored girl's baby? Nana, I said, mortified by what she had said, but laughing at her the way she laughed. You laughed at a toddler screaming fuck in the middle of a crowded department store. Charlie and Zoe latched onto Nana's antagonist racism and wrung out the chuckle that turned into a torrent of laughter. But we were so busy being mortified by what Nana had said and uncomfortable at our own responses that we didn't notice Mom crying until she said, "Oh, Charlie." The pasta carbone smelled delicious, but I didn't expect that I'd get to eat any because of the yelling and fighting and Charlie's occasional hysterical outburst. Once the shock wore off, Mom got around to listing the various reasons Zoe and Charlie were ruining their lives, and Charlie's only defense was consisted of shouting loud enough to drown her out. I could have settled the argument by informing them that I wasn't going to press the button. If the world needed someone as pathetic as me to save it, we were all better off dead. Nana wouldn't be shipped off to home. Charlie and Zoe wouldn't be saddled with a little parasite neither of them was ready to care for. I'd be doing them a favor. Only, I'm not so sure what I should do. I found a bag of stale potato chips under my bed and munched on the crumbs. I was too worked up to sleep, but not bored enough to do homework, so I killed an hour on the internet, which is how I ended up stalking Marcus's Snowflake page. It was flooded with comments about the party, and looked like he was going to be hosting more than just a few friends. Based on what I read, I guess he invited every kid at CHS. Well, almost every kid. Marcus probably hadn't even waited an hour after I turned him down before organizing the party. Fuck it. I shut off my computer, flopped across my bed, letting my head fall backwards so that the blood rushed to my brain. The pressure increased, and I counted the quickening thud, thud, thud of my heartbeat. I wonder how long I had to stay upside down before I passed out. How long after that before I died? I wonder what Jesse thought about after he stepped up the edge of his desk and dangled on the end of a rope. Charlie has a buddy who works for Callisto Fire Rescue, and he said Jesse's knots were the best he'd ever seen. A perfect noose on one hand, and a textbook club hitch on the other. Once Jesse took the plunge, he wouldn't have to change his mind, even if he wanted to. I wonder if he thought of me in his final seconds, or thought about his mom and dad or his dog, Captain Jack, that he had put to sleep only a few months earlier. Maybe random thoughts invaded his mind the way they do right after before you fall asleep. Thoughts like how you never taste chocolate again, or about the homework you neglected to finish. I doubt he thought of me at all. If I died before he decided whether to press the button, will the sluggers abduct someone else or force them to choose? Or will they let the world end? I should ask. No, fuck it. If I'm being stupid. If Marcus doesn't want me to be seen with me, why kiss me at all? I remember the first time it happened. I hung around at the Farsi's class to ask her a question about the lab. I went to the restroom after and knocked it to Marcus on his way out. I thought he was going to rearrange my face, but he kissed me. It was the first time since Jesse had died that I felt something. I knew even then Marcus was never going to be my boyfriend or write me sappy love letters. I'll never be with him what I had with Jesse. I'll doubt I'll have that again with anyone, but I want to be more than Marcus's stand-in. To him, I was the cheap pair of sunglasses you buy on vacation because you know you won't care if you break or lose them. Fuck it. Nothing matters. If I don't press the button, the world will end in 140 days. Marcus's party, Charlie's baby, Mom's job, Nana's memory. None of it matters. The sluggers didn't give me a choice. They gave me freedom. So what if Marcus hadn't invited me? He hadn't not invited me. No matter what happened, I could always let the world end and the universe forget. I could forget the party in Callisto and Earth, and I would forget Charlie and Zoe and Marcus and Mom and Nana. It had already forgotten Jesse, and if I let it, it would forget me too. I could write my name across the sky, and it would be in invisible ink. I showered and dressed, settling on jeans and a short-sleeved plaid shirt I borrowed from Jesse once and never returned. It had looked better on him, but that was true of everything. My hair was hopeless, and I did my best to make it appear purposely messy. My stomach rolled as uncertainty gnawed at my apathy-filled courage. I doubted Marcus would be thrilled I was catched at his party, and I wasn't sure whether I was going because I didn't care or because I was hoping to prove that Marcus did. Mom, Charlie, and Zoe were still talking in the kitchen. At least they seemed agreed upon the temporary ceasefire. Probably thanks to Zoe, who's far more level-headed than either my mom or brother. Nana was reading a book on the couch, a watchy bunker. I waved when I left, but she didn't notice. Audrey Dorn was waiting in the driveway in her blue BMW, a present from her parents on her 16th birthday. She smiled when I climbed into the car, leaned toward me like she was going to hug me, but hesitated, reversed the course, when she saw the look on my face. Thanks for the ride. I was surprised she called. Even wearing Jesse's shirt, I felt underdressed compared to Audrey. She was wearing jeans too, but hers probably cost more than my mom made in a month, and her silver hatter top sparkled with the moon sun on a calm motion. Used to hate parties. I still do. Did Marcus invite you? No. Audrey at that, which made me regret calling her. I wouldn't have, but Marcus lives on the other side of Callisto, and it was too warm outside to walk. She put the car in the gear and sped off. At least she hadn't pestered me about why I was going. You ready for the chem exam? Audrey asked. I never driven with her. It was a strange experience. She drove with both hands on the wheel, checked her mirrors religiously, and always used her turn signals. She even kept the music so low I could barely hear it. No. I heard Miss Farsi was supposed to be an easy A. Joke's on you. Maybe we should donut and accidentally mix sodium peroxide with water and kill us all with Posovian gas. Audrey giggled, but it sounded forced and more like a hiccup. I missed you, Henry. I didn't know how to respond. Audrey was doing me a favor driving me to Marcus's party, but I only called her out of desperation. Sometimes I wondered if I was being too hard on her. We both lost Jessie, and most of the time I thought we were both to blame for his suicide. But it was easier to stay mad at her. It wasn't like she didn't deserve it. I pulled a $10 bill from her pocket and stuffed it into the cup holder for gas. We drove the rest of the way in silence. Marcus lived in a mansion, not one of those Fox McMansions that everyone sees to live in these days, but an actual mansion with 2 garages, 12 bedrooms, a formal dining room, and a kitchen the size of a tennis court. Which is ludicrous to me. As far as I know, Mr. and Mrs. McCoy never cook. Audrey drove past the security gate and parked on the side of the winding driveway. Sloppy rows of expensive cars, sparkled under decorated lights, swung on the palm of trees that kept Vega over the yard. I was a fraud. I didn't belong. No one had invited me, and no one would miss me if I fled. If you're having second thoughts, we could grab a bite at Sweeney's instead. Audrey's was in my head, and I wanted her out. I haven't eaten her in ages. Me either. In fact, I haven't been to Sweeney's since the last time Audrey, Jessie, and I had gone together. We shared a tower of onion rings to celebrate Jessie's being cast as Seymour in the CHS production of Little Shop of Horrors. Jessie sang all the time. He was singing at night. I realized I loved him. It wouldn't have surprised me to learn he'd been singing when he died. Henry? I shook Jessie from my thoughts. If you knew the world was going to end, you alone had the power to prevent it, would you? Of course. Why? What do you mean? A shiny black pickup truck parked beside Audrey's car, and 4 girls from our class spilled out, chatting and smiling, probably sharing the illusion that they were going to have the best night of their lives. Give me one reason why you think humanity deserves to live. I recognized the look she was giving me, the poor pathetic Henry look that made me want to gouge her eyes out with a plastic knife. If this is about Jessie, forget it. What? Do you honestly believe any of this is important? That in 100 years, one of your great-great-grand whatever is going to write about how you went to a party, got hammered, and tried to avoid being groped by every boy with hands? None of those matters, Audrey. We're all fucked. I opened the car door but didn't get out. Audrey's bottom lip trembled and tears welled in her eyes. It was a dirty trick, and she knew it. I miss Jessie too, but you deserve better than Marcus McCoy. Please tell me you get that. If I really deserve better, then maybe Jessie shouldn't have killed himself. I was out walking toward the house before Audrey could kill the engine and follow. Calling her was a mistake, and I vowed to walk home before asking her for another ride. The 2-story tall front doors of Marcus' house was wide open and welcoming. Couples and crowds flew in, their cheeks flushed, pleasantly drunk, stumbling and stomping, or stoned, just laughing at some joke I never heard. I was worried as I entered that they'd see me and cringe, wonder who let Spaceboy in, but no one noticed me. I snagged a beer for the kitchen and wandered through the house. I knew the rooms knew me. Marcus and I made out on the leather couch. I gone down on him under the baby grand piano. He chased me through the library and caught me on the stairs. We fucked on the counter, on the floor, and in the bathtub. After all we've done, I'm still his dirty secret. Marcus fucked Henry, and the grammar of our relationship, I'm the object. I chugged my beer and grabbed another. Henry Denton. Diego Vega was standing on the back against the wall, holding a bottle of water. He said something to the girl standing near him and met me in the keg. He was wearing faded jeans and a thin orange hoodie that made him stick out like the one dead bulb in a string of lit Christmas lights. When he reached me, he gave me a stiff one-arm bro hug. Only in school weekend, already at the coolest party in Clispo. I'm impressed. Diego buzzed with energy, like the physical confinements of his body couldn't contain him. I never been in a house this big. I sipped my beer and tried to think of something witty to say. I hadn't expected to see Diego, but I was glad he was there. They got 2 pools. What, Diego? Cupped his hand to his ear. Someone was blasting shitty pop power in another room, and it was drowning out of voices. Come on. I pulled Diego away from the kitchen toward the family room. I was hoping it would be emptier, but there were group playing pool. It looked like the girls against guys, and girls were kicking ass. The music was loud, though. That's better. Diego looked at the room. Shelves stuffed with books were built onto these walls, and a TV dominated the fourth. How rich is this guy? Marcus, I shrugged. Look, McCoy's a super rich. His dad is an investment banker or something. Who? Marcus McCoy, the guy who lives here? Diego smacked my chest. That's his name. He's in my econ class. It's been driving me crazy. He had dimples like a quicksand, and his hazel eyes reminded me of slugger's skin. Anyway, I was hoping I'd run into you. Bullshit. Seriously. Why? Diego shrugged. You're the only person I met who hasn't asked me what kind of car I drive. Well, when you're the only person in this party who actually wants me here. I doubt it. That's because you're new. Diego had an honest face, but I found it difficult to believe he'd come to some party to see me when I'm practically invisible to everyone else. How you like a Quispo? Honestly, it's weird. Sometimes there are too many people and I just want to find a quiet place to read in. Other times I want to surround myself with many people as possible, but I love the beach. I'm there so often my sister jokes about buying me a tent so I can sleep there. Keep the zipper locked or you'll wake up being spooned by a bum. So as long as I get to be the little spoon. Diego's laugh made me smile in spite of myself. Maybe I've been wrong to fear the party. I've been here an hour and not only had it turned to a disaster, I was actually having fun. You'll have to work that out on your own. I finished off my beer and set the cup down on a bookshelf ledge. We lingered in an awkward stage of conversation where there's no logical next topic, but the silence hadn't yet grown uncomfortable. If you knew the world was going to end and you could press a button to prevent it, would you? Diego raised his eyebrow. Is there something I should know? It's a hypothetical question. That hypothetical, yes. Why? Because I'm not keen on dying. The ghosts at the pool table squeal with delight, raising the losers. I try to block them out. But you're going to die anyway. Sure, when I'm old. You could die at any time. A freak lightning strike could fire your heart, or you could drown in a molasses Tuzamet. Goodness gracious. Diego's face was difficult to read. He seemed to take my question seriously, but I hoped he wasn't going along with it while he writhed away to escape. If I didn't press the button, I'm definitely dead. At least if I press it, I've got a chance at a long life. I like having choices. Having choices is the problem. Everything would be easier if someone had told me what to do. Push the button. Stop seeing Marcus. Get over Jesse. The problem with the choices is that I usually make the wrong ones. Diego reached out and brushed a stray lock of hair off my forehead. Sorry, that was driving me crazy. Great, now everyone's gonna figure out my secret identity. Space Boy? Diego said, smiling. They already know. My smile disappeared, and my defenses snapped up. I shoved my way past Diego without a word. His apologies bounced off my back while I was fucking bulletproof. I needed to leave. No escape to escape the house and party. All of this artificial people, but the front was crowded, and I stumbled onto the patio, where it was quiet and I could breathe. Space Boy! Marcus and a mixed group of some of who looked like familiar were sitting around the patio table by the hot tub. Natalia Carter lounged across his lap. The moment he said my name, I became invisible. People who hadn't noticed me before were suddenly glaring at me like I was covered with festering sores. They paraded Space Boy invented semi-creative versions of the room. None stung as badly as when Diego had said it. Who the fuck let you in? Marcus' voice was a cough syrup, but his words were acid. Front door was open. A burning pang banged in the center of my chest and spread to my limbs. Marcus was treating me like I was nobody, less than. I wonder how his friends in the hot tub reacted to find out what we'd done when we were lounging. Marcus elbowed Adrian Morse. We need to start charging the door. Keep out the trash. I'm sure when Adrian's mom looks at him in the morning or brushes his sweaty hair off his forehead when he sleeps through a fever, she thinks he's a nice boy. But when I look at him, all I see is a demented thug with an inferiority complex and hardly a thought of his own bouncing in his empty head. I can get rid of him. If only getting rid of your herpes was as easy, I said. Adrian stood, but Marcus pulled him down. There was a dangerous gleam in Marcus' eyes and a flicker that scared me. Fuck it, I'm feeling charitable. Spice Boy could stay. Maybe you could phone home and convince the aliens to join the party. If you do, ask them to bring ice. We're running low. I had no intention of remaining at the party. All I could think about was how I had been so wrong. I should never come. Once Marcus was done tormenting me, I planned to leave and never speak to him or anyone else again. But first, Marcus said, you have to take a shot. For when Marcus' friend sat and stood on the patio, drinking and smoking and judging, I felt their contempt. It burned through my skin, melted the fat from my body, chewed through my muscles until I was nothing but a skeleton. Bleached bones held together by duct tape, and he tattered remains of my pride. J.O. flicked the bottle cap at me and bounced off my chest and slattered across the table. What would aliens want with a just Stanley Kim? Aren't there better people to duck? Better looking, certainly, Marcus said, which earned him a kiss from Talia. He kept his eyes on me while she sucked his lips, and I stood there and took it because I was an object. We were all objects to Marcus McCoy. Marcus began chanting, shot, 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 and it was all taken up by drunken hoarded surrounding me. Adrian set up a round of shots, sloshing a dark brown liquid into the glasses, spilling some over the sides. Marcus watched me with a manic, sweaty grin. Adrian finished pouring and rolled his eyes. Space Boy's a little bitch. He won't. I grabbed the nearest shot glass and threw back. The liquor tastes like pourri licorice and blood. I shivered as it hit my empty stomach. When I finished, I drowned a second shot. Thanks for the drink. I tossed the glass onto the table and left. The laughter hounded me, but I refused to look back. The war was going to end, and none of this mattered. I tried to convince myself I was all right, but I'm so far from all right. I was too drunk to walk home, and I couldn't find an empty room to hide in. So I ended up sitting by the edge of the lap pool, obscured by fake rocks and palm trees. The pool was far enough from the house that I wasn't worried about being found, but still near enough that I could hear the laughter. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't escape being Space Boy. The moon was hardly stretched in the sky, but underwater lights illuminated the tiled bottom of the pool. All the way down to the deep, deep end, it had to be 8 or 9 feet. I bet I'd sink. It would have been easy to roll over the side, fully clothed, and let the weight of denim and cotton drag me to the bottom while my last breath escaped my lungs. The world was spinning around me, and maybe the alcohol in my blood would prevent my survival instincts from kicking in, and I could drown peacefully without all that unnecessary flaring and screaming. It didn't matter why the sluggers had chosen me, only that they had. Hell, why wait for the war to end at all? Diego was wrong. Pressing a button wouldn't give me choices. Only this. Only humiliation. Loneliness. Death was easier. I could lean forward and let my weight carry me into the water. Gravity would do the rest. Everything would end, and all I'd have to do was let it happen. The moon grew brighter and multiplied the shadows. They encircled me, bottling me out the light. I shook my head to clear the vertigo. I needed to piss, but I didn't want to go back inside. I could always piss in the pool. My breath caught up in my throat, and the hairs on my ears rose. I tried to look around, but couldn't. I tried to call out, but no words escaped my lips. I was paralyzed. Oh, I thought, as the moon's light blinded me, and the shadows gasped at me with green-brown fingers. I didn't expect to see you here. Okay, that's our 2 chapters for today. So that was kind of a heavy chapter. And I know what you guys are thinking. Wow, that was a really heavy chapter. Yeah, I know. Okay, sorry. My thoughts are not collected together right now. But anyway, that was a really heavy chapter. And it brings up some really heavy themes that can affect a lot of you. And certainly do affect me. But just know that if you're ever feeling like you're alone in the world and that you want to hurt yourself, you can always reach out. There are always going to be people that care about you and that want to help you, including me. Even if you don't know me, I would gladly listen to any one of you rant to me. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great night. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get more videos. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.